surrounded by books was my life, and it got me into libraries. So that was my career. I was a librarian, and I've worked in corporate, I've worked in law, and I was a public librarian for 30 years, and absolutely loved it. And I always thought, well, this is how I'm going to be surrounded by books, but then realized, hey, wait a minute, I don't necessarily want to be surrounded by books. I'd like to see some of them on the shelf that are by me. So, so when there was a moment when I had to have a career change and realized, thanks to my lovely wife, she said, "You've always wanted to write, just start. Let's do it and see what happens." And 2 years later, I had my first book published. But and to answer your question about Leave No Trace specifically, I've always had an idea to do Die Hard in the national parks. I'm a big fan of the parks. I visit them all the time. And I had written a draft and I gave it to a couple people to read, and they came back and said, "This is boring. This is horrible. What are you thinking?" So I rewrote it, gave it to somebody else, and they said the exact same thing. I'm like, okay, what am I doing wrong? So John Land has been a friend of mine for a long time, and a big fan of his books going back to the late 80s. He's been writing a long time. And I said to him, "Here's this. What do you think? What am I doing wrong?" And he said, you need to blow up the Statue of Liberty on page one. And I said, "But the Statue of Liberty is not in the book." And he goes, "Exactly." And so after some more talking to him, he actually just turned in a book and he said, "I've got some time. Let's see what I can do to help you." And next thing I know, we were writing it together and we had about 50 pages done. And he said, "This is the most fun I've had in years. This is great. Let's keep going with these 50 pages." And was able to do it.
Wow.
So that's how John and I ended up writing
And John
this one and Cold Burn.
he lives kind of back east, doesn't he?
He lives in Providence, Rhode Island, yes. And he's a night owl. So we would hop on Zoom just like this, and it would be like 8 o'clock our time. And we'd talk for 2 or 3 hours and outline all the pages. And then he would turn in basically like, here's what we just talked about, and give me pages. And then I would edit those and add in the, what do you call you know how each chapter, since you've read it, begins with a little factoid about where the chapter's set.
Yeah.
That was all me. So I would add those in, and then all the stuff about the parks and the settings, that was all me. And Michael's me too. His character was Gina and some of the other stuff and a lot of the military type things. But anyway, we had a blast.
All right.
We work well together.
Wonderful. And you came up with that very innovative name for the author.
Yes. They didn't want to have both of our names on the book for some reason, so we came up with that. And I think in retrospect, they're the publisher is admitting they made a mistake and wanted both of our names on it after all, because they originally were going to keep it secret that we had written it together, but that disappeared quickly. And then they were like, "Well, why did we give you a pseudonym?" But publishers like pseudonyms. I don't know why. In fact, I have a cozy mystery. I'll highlight this now. I've got a cozy mystery coming out in August,
Wow.
and you see another name, JB Abbott.
Wow.
So my wife thinks I should go to therapy now with all my multiple personalities.
Yep. Who's
Yeah.
the publisher on that one?
Crooked Lane.
Oh, right, right. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
familiar with them.
Hmm. Yeah. And we don't know if there's going to be a second book in that series because they don't want to even talk about it until the book's actually out.
Uh-huh.
So they said, "But we want you to have some ideas." So
So
I
see,
have this big outline over here that I,
nobody
um,
talk about this. All the people in the watching, shh, it's a secret. That's great. I am wondering, I have a comment here just to get us kind of into the Q&A a little bit. Claudia
mhm.
Travis couldn't make it. She's in a classroom, I assume, teaching or learning or something. She's got to be on one side or the other, right? She says, on other news, I enjoyed Leave No Trace. I've looked at it several times, but just didn't take the step to get it. It certainly was action packed, interesting to have the main character to have a physical handicap, and the author handled it well. The premise was an interesting one, and I hope it never happens. So there,
Agreed.
on that
Yeah.
note, I guess if folks want to talk to you, they can go ahead. Guys, just dive in.
I'm curious where the idea for the plot came from. All of the pieces of and a little bit about the research too, in terms of um explosives and all of that.
One of the things that I used to do is I was the co-executive director for Thriller Fest, which is a annual conference in New York where thriller authors get together, but also agents and editors and publishers. And I was one of those people who was going every year and just absolutely had a blast. And one of the things that happens is when you are going to that, you go have dinner with people and you meet so many different people from different backgrounds. And when I was sitting with John Land, actually, we were sitting next to a guy who worked for the Secret Service. And he said, "So what do you guys want to know stuff about explosives? It sounds like you need to." I'm like, "Well, yeah, please." And so at dinner, he explained some of that stuff. And then later was able to go back and double check and make sure we got all those details right without giving things away, of course. We don't want to uh, give a roadmap to have someone actually do what we do in the book. But yeah, it's a combination of the people you meet and also just kind of doing the research for fun. I go to the parks and I talk to the rangers. And in fact, I got to be a ranger for a day at Mount Rainier, and I got to be an ISB agent, who's Michael's role. I got to be one of those for a day at Olympic National Park. And then they also were kind enough to read the manuscript and say, "Hey, you didn't get this right," and so we make the changes. And we also had an FBI agent read it, and so it's about the people that we bring up in there, talking to them and making sure we got it right. And we even had a prosthetics expert um, give us some insight.
I just wondered whether there's an additional book after this one with some of these same characters.
The answer is yes. In fact, I can do another thing, but they haven't sent me the final yet, but this is the sequel. This comes out on Tuesday. And this one takes place in the Everglades and Glacier Bay National Park in Alaska.
So you're sticking to the national parks.
Yes. And the idea also is that there'll be multiple parks per book.
Oh,
I love books set in national parks, but one of the things that frustrated me was like Nevada Bars books and some of the others, it's always one park, one mystery. And I thought, well, heck, there's so many beautiful national parks. And with a character like Michael, who works for the ISB, that gives him access to any of the places the Park Service oversees, which is over 430 locations. So why just stick to just one per book? So yeah, that's what we end up doing. So this was a lot of fun. I would say Die Hard's the first book, and this one is more Michael Crichton because there's a science element to it, and also theft of native artifacts. And I got to actually go up into Alaska and talk to the rangers up there and some of the folks. It was so much fun doing the research. Research is great.
I'm gonna say it sounds to me like this is all just an excuse so you can travel.
Don't tell my wife. Shh. Yeah. And actually, book 3, I'm under contract for that. I'm working on it right now. And uh, Tuesday, the day the Cold Burn comes out, I'm actually going to be on a research trip to a national park.
Cool.
Yeah.
I wonder.
And book 3 is called Blast Radius, tentatively.
I wonder if you'd be bringing the fact that all their funds or their staff are being cut and what the hell that affects things.
Yeah. That one is really tough. When we started the series, we had no idea that it was going to be a political issue. And so there's a lot of things that I'm trying to do in promoting the books at the same time promoting the parks and trying to keep them from being mined and all these other horrible things that are happening. And a lot of my experts actually have been laid off. And what's happening now also is the people who are still there, they can't talk to me anymore. They have to get permission. Yeah, it's weird. And yeah, so I'm very disturbed by that, and that's another reason why I'm working with the National Park Conservation Association to stop these things from happening. Leave the parks alone. They're beautiful. They should be the same 500 years from now. And do I really want to go to Zion and watch some oil derrick? No. So yes, it is frustrating.
It's a hard
Would you, would you, would you still use some of the laid off park personnel as experts? Would you still go to them?
Yes, absolutely. Especially if I'm in a park and things are happening in that park, they worked there, they would know how it worked. And some of them are what they call seasonal rangers. So they'll work like maybe the summer in Yellowstone, then they'll work the winter in like an Alaska park or something. And they have to learn the parks quickly because then they get people like me asking all these questions. So yeah, no, they're even if they've been laid off, they're still great sources.
Will you include
Brenda,
the
leave, sorry.
Olympic National Park in any of the stories?
I do want to at some point. Right now, I would say book 3 is not dealing with Olympic. Maybe book 4, and I'm hoping there'll be a book 4. It depends on how Colburn does and how they like the new book that I'm working on now. And I actually have a new co-author for that, which is interesting. So real quick on that. I did a research trip last summer. I drove around the country and visited 34 national park sites and talked to the rangers. And at one point, I went to what's called Isle Royal, which is in the middle of Lake Superior. And so, which is the coolest park ever. And the boat trip in, I got to sit up there with the captain and talk to him all about how the boats work and how the passengers ferrying back and forth, all that. It was great. Learned a ton. But when I got back from that research trip, my agent called me and said, John got a deal to ghostwrite a book, and he can't write book 3 with you now. And when I heard how much he was getting paid to do the ghostwriting, like, yeah, no, I totally understand. I'd dump him too. But the publisher said we wanted to still be a co-writing effort, and I approached another author who I liked, and it was 6 months of negotiation, and I'm not exaggerating. It was 6 months of going to his agent, going to, my agent, and then trying to work out a deal. And we finally got it all settled. And yeah, so we're writing it now, and it's due in October. And it's about volcanoes.
It's due to be submitted to the publisher in October or due out?
That is correct. Yes.
And
So then it'll be out in 2026. And what's your dog's name, Brenda? I love doggies.
This
Hi.
one, she came to me named Misha, but to me, she's Daisy.
Oh, well,
She's
hello there.
she's a sweetheart, sweetest
Oh.
little. You know how most dogs love to be petted and get attention. She loves to give attention.
Oh,
So
that's
loving.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is a cute dog.
Oh, hi there.
Oh, yeah,
thank
hi.
you.
She shows her face. Yes,
I'm-
right.
But we'll just look at your dog the rest of the time. That's okay.
He also likes to be on Zoom.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Of course, absolutely.
do you have a dog?
Hello, Daisy. Hey, Daisy. Oh, she's ignoring us.
Out for the count.
Yeah. Oh, so
So-
I was going to mention real quick the author I'm working with. His name is John Lindstrom, And you might know the name. He's also an actor. He's been on General Hospital, and he's currently on a new soap called Beyond the Gates.
Are,
So we have to write in between his filming times. So
Yeah.
it's been kind of fun.
are you gonna keep Landau as the,
They want to keep the Landau, yes. And of course, my wife, she says, your agent's a John, you worked with a John, you get a new co-author, and what do? You get a John. She's like, come on. You can add any other names to choose from.
So I want to ask you about the title "Leave No Trace."
Mhm.
That always meant to me, like if you're a camper or a hiker, you be sure to pack everything out and leave
Yes.
nothing behind. So how does this relate to your story?
Uh, when I was in Acadia National Park and saw a sign "Leave No Trace," I went, "There's the title for the book." It just like that's it. That's absolutely it. And I love the idea of you go to a park and you leave no trace of yourself behind because the idea is, again, as we mentioned earlier, keeping the parks as pristine as they can be for the future generations. And I also thought it was kind of cool because if you think about crime, the perfect crime, you don't leave a trace. Yeah.
And these guys would have gotten away with it if it weren't for the kid in the camp video.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Um, that was interesting doing the research on the Statue of Liberty because um, the person who helped me the most there was a photographer who worked for the tourist company there, and he knew everything, even their security protocols. And so when I was talking to him, he was pointing things out to me. And then at one point, a helicopter flew over with guys with automatic weapons, and they were doing a patrol. And so, like, oh my goodness. And he explained what they were doing. And then afterwards, I met with one of the law enforcement rangers there. And he's like, well, what do you want to know? And I said, well, I already know a lot actually now. And then I was able to talk a little bit more. But yeah, and because of talking to them and realizing um, how things worked, the kid popped into my head, and I mentioned, John, hey, we should have a kid who knows boats and should be filming. And yeah, so that was sort of how all that played out because we were stumped for a while, like, well, how could we, you know, start tracking down who actually was responsible?
I
So-
have, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, go ahead,
for a second,
Susan.
break in?
Oh.
Susan Van Plu started to say something earlier and
Oh.
she'll have a question from before.
My only point was, what I wanted to say is I'm glad to hear that you had an expert in prosthetics, because when I was reading, I was wondering if what Michael was able to do and how he was able to move, if that was really legit. Okay. So
Yes.
I'm because I don't know anybody who has a prosthetic, but I did find it refreshing to have one of our main characters working and living with what we would call a disability and still being able to function. And so I just am glad to hear that you actually had an expert that you talked to about that. And because that was part of what I enjoyed about this book, is that you were able to make it feel real. Okay. I knew it was fiction, but it felt real. And I think part of that was from the little historical blurbs that you put there, and every place that was there was someplace you could find on a map. So even though it was fiction, for me, I was able to say, wow, this could happen. And so I thank you for that part.
Oh, well, thank you very much. The truth is about the prosthetics, in addition to having a prosthetics expert, I went to the Law Enforcement Ranger Academy, which is about 50 miles north of me, and interviewed the instructor there. He used to be a superintendent of Denali National Park. But he mentioned to me when I told him about the character, he said there actually is a ranger who has a prosthetic foot who is active right now. And I wasn't able to talk to him, unfortunately, but what I did learn was he had to do the same exact stuff that someone with a regular foot would do because that's what the job entails. So thinking about what Michael has to go through, with the loss of his wife and all these other elements and what he had to push himself through to be able to do his role, I just thought that's something that a lot of us should be able to strive for. Like, you know, don't just sit back and go, okay, I can't do that. No, got to
Mhm.
persevere. And I love that element of it. And John said to me, well, he also is wearing his grief every single day. And I like that element of it as well. But I'm so thankful that you found that realistic and stuff. So thank you.
Well,
My
Sue,
daughter, my daughter hasn't read it yet, which is funny. She reads books all the time. She's still like, no, I'm not going to read your stuff. Like, okay,
of course not.
yeah,
What is it?
Why
The
not?
that is not respected in their own country or something like that. So
yeah. And the first person who reads everything I write is my wife, and she cannot stand thrillers or suspense of any kind.
hmm,
So it's I always feel bad in a way because it's like, well, I know you kind of don't like this, but she still wants to read it, and she's gives great feedback. And a lot of it has to do with characters and things like that specifically, um, and also setting. But in terms of the thriller elements, she kind of skips those parts.
Well, I was wondering, at the beginning with the blowing up of the base of the Statue of Liberty.
Mhm.
In my mind, I accepted that there was minimal damage to the statue, but I was wondering how that was possible to have
What
so
we
little damage to the statue itself.
um, Having been to the statue several times, one of the things we talked about with a couple people at the Statue of Liberty also was if you blew up the base, there's sort of like a base, and then there's a pedestal, and then there's the statue. So if we blew up the base, we kind of thought, well, it's just going to topple. And we also did that because we didn't want to blow up the whole statue, because the very first thing we said was the end of the book has to be them putting the statue back. And so we tried to blow it up, but also be as minimalist with the damage to the actual statue.
Okay,
Yeah, but it would if it toppled. Um, it's actually the inside of it looks like the Eiffel Tower, and in fact, it is the same guy who built the Eiffel Tower, designed the inside of it. So it's pretty strong structure, and it's copper.
okay, okay.
So yeah,
That, that makes more sense then.
hopefully, hopefully that will not happen.
Well, I had a
So,
friend in college who said that if you can imagine it, it can be done.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
did you have the basic structure for the story before you did any of the research, or did some of the research that you did um, shape the story?
It was kind of both. Um, Truthfully, I had an outline, complete chapter by chapter outline for the book, especially after starting working with John. And John never looked at it at all, never looked at it. But what we would do is there'd be times where I would call him or he would call me and say, "Hey, got an idea here." And so I would say, okay, now I got to go see if we can do it. And so then I would contact one of my contacts and say, hey, can we do this actually? And especially in book two, there was a couple times where we would have something that happened related to viruses. And my wife is a scientist, and so I'd go to her and say, "Can we do this?" And she'd say, "No, can't do that. You'd have to do it this way." Like, that's great. So then we go back and say, "Okay, this is how we can do it."
Hmm.
Yeah. So, and that's part of the fun of it is if you lock yourself into this is how it's going to be in the book, it takes a lot of the fun out of it, and you learn more and get some really cool stuff as a result by asking questions and talking to the experts who will say, "Oh, yeah, but if you did it this way, it's even better." A good example of that is the light in the Independence Hall scene that actually was given to us by another person I was having dinner with at Thriller Fest, who said, "I always wanted to see this happen in a book, and this could actually happen." And I'm scribbling notes as fast as I possibly could.
I was wondering if any of your outline, when you finished the book, did any of it follow some of the things in your outline, or was that just a total waste?
It wasn't a total waste, but no, nothing in the outline stayed. Uh, in fact, his wife was supposed to be throughout the book, so that was taken out like immediately. But one of the things that I love about this whole process is there's still some really great ideas in there, and I've been able to pull those out and utilize those in both Cold Burn and the new book that I'm working on. So nothing ever really goes to waste.
Yeah.
And authors will tell you that too. It's like, yeah, no, just put it in a drawer or shove it in a file on your hard drive. And when you get to a point where like, what am I going to do here? Go, oh, wait, and then look and see. I'm hoping to go to Arches eventually for a book, and because Arches is like being on another planet. And I have a whole bunch of stuff on Arches. So, but I just have to find the right story to get Michael there.
Chris is one of our wonderful local authors, and she writes mysteries, and so
Oh,
that's why she's going to have a little bit different questions for you than some of the other folks that are readers.
oh, that's great. No,
Chris,
I also used to work at Mount Rainier. So
really?
there was, in fact, there was a female park ranger shot there a
Yes.
number of years ago.
Hmm.
So was that kind of part of the idea for what happened in the book?
Yes. In fact, when we wrote that scene, my contact at Rainier, who's the head law enforcement ranger there, uh, I specifically said to him, "Hey, because of what happened to her, we're kind of thinking going this way. Is that okay? And did we get it right?" And he helped tweak it a little bit. And yeah, I didn't want to step on any toes or make anybody feel uncomfortable. And yeah, what happened to her was a tragedy. Essentially, she was a law enforcement ranger and she pulled over a guy who was speeding in the park and he shot her and then ran. And so there was a manhunt for him for several days in the park.
Mhm.
And then they finally found his body in the park. Um, and he just died from pretty much exposure and starvation. But yeah, that type of stuff should not happen at all.
How about the character Jeremiah? Where did the idea for that character come from?
We needed to have a villain who hated the parks. And when I was researching Mount Rainier and talking to my contacts there, I discovered that there was a law that passed, and that was in 1980. And when that law passed, and it's mentioned in the book, uh, Mount Rainier's property line essentially expanded.
Mm.
And when I saw that, I went, I think this could be our motivation for the guy. And, it essentially, what do you mean I have to give up my home? And that seemed to work really well. Because before, we actually had the draft completely done, and we're reading it to ourselves before we turned it in and said, something's missing. And then we realized, wait, we don't have a motivation for what he's doing, and then discovered that. I hope that worked, but
Yeah.
And unfortunately, every time I read his name, I kept thinking about that old song, Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog.
Joy to the world, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I kept thinking about the Bundys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremiah was named after somebody John knew. And he kind of liked the name because it also kind of had a little biblical feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have a character in Cold Burn that will remind people of a let's just say high-tech billionaire. And yeah, we certainly were um, going with that when we were writing it, but then again had no idea. It's been turned in for almost a year now, and who knew? Yeah.
Life
So will,
is funny that way. I'm sorry, Susan, go ahead.
so in your future books, will you continue to have the historical notes at each chapter?
Yes.
Okay.
That's sort of we consider that the AJ Landau brand.
Okay.
Yeah. And I personally love thrillers where I learn something, and that to me makes it even more fun and more realistic in a way. So yeah, the next book gives you insight into life in Alaska, and also sort of a background on the history of the Everglades, and it was a lot of fun to do the research on that. And in fact, in the Everglades, we have a scene on one of those airboats. If you're familiar with those, they have the big fans in the back. And of course, I know nothing about them, so I called one of the airboat rental places, and the head guy there gave me a whole bunch of cool stuff.
I was,
And I was going to say also, if you look in the back in the acknowledgments, I try to acknowledge everybody who was able to help with that particular book.
I thought it was interesting at the end of the book where Gina was given a special position with the president. And I thought, that might be an interesting series about her because she is appointed to go wherever she's needed. And I thought that could lead to a nice series.
Hmm. That's one of the reasons why we did that. And I will say that Colburn, she plays a prominent role again.
Oh, good.
But book 3, she does not. She makes a cameo. And I say that because my editor said, more Michael, less Gina. It's like, okay. You got to go with what your editor tells you. But yeah, I'd love Gina, and seeing her in a spin-off series would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell my editor you said that.
Well, I really loved the book. I had finished reading a book that was quite tame and calm, although I like mysteries mostly. And then I picked up this one and it's like, wow, right away. Oh, yay. I'm into this one for sure. So it was a great opening, I thought.
Oh, well, cool. Thank you. Yeah.
I do a lot of my reading right before I go to sleep at night. And I was so involved in this book. And I ended up dreaming about it that night. I was part of the story.
That's awesome. I hope it was not the violent parts, just the fun parts,
No,
like
no,
being
it
in the
was,
parks.
it was it was in the in-between parts.
Oh,
We knew
okay.
I knew something was going to happen, but I didn't know where.
Okay. That's neat. I will confess, and Chris, since you're a writer, you'll understand this. Michael came to me in a dream, and he basically it was him sitting down in a chair, and he said, "Hi," and said, "My name is Michael Walker, and I have a story to tell you." And he just told me his life. And I woke up and went, what? And so I wrote down what he said and like, okay. And when I went back to sleep, he came back and said, okay. And he continued. And that was for
Wow.
2 nights. He came for 2 nights.
Wow.
And I've said, okay, I got to do something with Michael. And so anyway, that's how Michael Walker came to be
So
the main character.
was that before you wrote your first draft?
Yes. I had been thinking for a long time, how can I do this national park idea? And then Michael came to me in this dream, and I made all these notes, and I said, okay, here's my main character. Now what? And so then I started researching the ISB and researching various parks and all that other stuff. And then that's when I started writing my first draft, which was boring.
Well, I'm glad you stuck with it and revised it. It's a great story, and I love the character, and I love hearing how it came to you.
And I'm so thankful that you all love this as well, because it's just been, percolating in my brain for so long. And I knew it was a good idea, but just getting it to be, on the page just took a lot of determination.
How long did it take from the time you had the dream to the time it was published?
7 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is determined.
Yeah. In fact, I had a book that I wrote. It was a sci-fi conspiracy novel that Tor Forge Publishing bought. And then that editor sat on it for 3 years and then came back to me and says, I think this should be medical thriller instead. Like, well, you're telling me to rewrite the entire book and change the whole. And so I ended up buying the book back. So that was a little frustrating. But while I was waiting for my editorial notes and next steps with that book, that's when I was like, okay, I'm really focusing on getting this national park idea done. And yeah. The truth is though about that sci-fi conspiracy, I gave it to a friend of mine to read about 6 months ago, and he came back and said, "You have the wrong point of view character." And when he explained to me what I had not seen, I went, "Holy moly, that's the book. That's why I need to rewrite this." So it's been rewritten, and now my agent has it. So I surprised him. He's like, when do you have time to, you're doing the cozy, you're doing the national park thriller, and I'm actually working on a nonfiction book as well. But like, when did you have time to do this? I said, it just came. Once I realized I had the wrong character as the main point of view character.
Hmm.
So we'll see what happens with that one. It's called Nowhere to Go right now.
What genre?
It's a YA sci-fi military. It's sort of like all over. It's about a 17-year-old girl who has lived her entire life inside a plastic world. She's trapped on an army base, and in this house, she lives in plastic essentially. And people come to her, and they teach her. So that's how she gets her education. And she's told that she's trapped in this plastic and can't leave the house is because she has a disease that if she's out in the world, she will kill everyone. And so they call her basically patient zero. And so she decides when she wants to go to college, it's like, I can wear scuba gear, whatever. And they're like, no, you have to stay here. You can't go to college. She decides to take matters into her own hands and runs. And then finding out the truth about what she really is and trying to outrun the people chasing her.
I want to read it.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Hurry up.
Well,
like
my agent's got it, so we'll see.
Sounds like some kind of military experiment to me.
You would be correct.
Wow. Cool.
And what's the nonfiction book about?
Are any of you fans of Doug Preston and Lincoln Childs books, the Agent
Yeah.
Pendergast books?
Hmm.
So I'm working with Doug and Lincoln, and we're doing a companion book to their books, both solo and together.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I'm doing it for their publisher, so we'll see what happens. It's due next year. In fact, I have another meeting with them tomorrow, and basically it's us on Zoom, and I just say okay, and we talk about their books, and so each book gets covered. There's facts behind the fiction, and then their insight onto like what caused them to write this particular book, why they decided to go this way, and then I also interview the director of the movie The Relic, which was a terrible, terrible movie, but but it was fun talking to the director. So yeah. So anyway, if you're a fan of their books, this is a guide to all their books, and that will be coming out next year.
Cool.
What's it like co-writing? Like, what are some of the challenges and joys of co-writing?
I love co-writing myself. I feel like the book is stronger as a result because just me, two heads are better than one. I mean, I can have some cool ideas, yes, but having someone else's input. In fact, the book 3, like I said, I'm doing with a co-author now. I'm already like, this book is so much better as a result of working with this guy. I think of if you watch a lot of TV shows, a lot of the shows have writers' rooms, and it's people sitting in a room and hammering out ideas, and then they come up with the best stuff, and then they go write it. And to me, that's just like that'd be a dream place to work someday. But yeah, it's always two heads are better than one, and the book is so much better as a result, and it's so much fun having someone else to correspond with and work on the details as you go, because writing is such a solitary endeavor.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't really heard from Diane or Brenda C. Come on, gals. You must have something to say. Brenda's like, no, I don't want to.
I'm scary. I know it. I apologize.
No,
Virginia.
no, you're not scary, and I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It was great. Definitely kept
Thank you.
me turning pages. I'm looking forward to the release of Cold Burn. So thanks.
Thank you. I'll tell you a secret about Cold Burn. When we turned it in, I said to John, I don't like this one as much. And it might have been because it was rushed or whatever, because, they gave us a shorter deadline. And the more I look at it and go back over it, the more I actually like it. And the reviews for it have actually been better than Leave No Trace consistently. So I'm actually kind of excited about that. So hopefully you'll like that one as well. Writers are supposed to say that the book they're currently working on is their favorite.
Yeah.
But Leave No Trace has a special place in my heart because it's the first book in the series that got Michael out there in the world, and
Yeah, I wanted to say, remember, next time you see Michael, tell him we appreciate what he did and thanks. Because that's great. Great. Diane, you were willing to say something, weren't you?
Well, I really enjoyed the book, but it was kind of scary because I could see something like that happening.
Hmm.
It was almost too real in some places. I'm looking forward to the one with the Everglades though, because I grew up down in Florida. So
Oh, okay. That's awesome. The basic idea is that there's a murder of a scientist in the Everglades, and then in Alaska there's theft of native artifacts. And so Michael's in Alaska, and Gina is in the Everglades trying to solve, and then they realize that the cases they're working on are connected.
Once again, connected.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges is when you write thrillers, you have to connect everything, even though readers like, of course, everything's connected because that's what they expect. But if you don't connect them, then people get upset. So, yeah, I've read a couple books where the two did not connect, and I was like, you can't do that. And I thought, oh wait, now I get it. Now I know why you have to make everything connect.
Yeah, it's amazing how much control readership actually has. And then the writers, the authors, they kind of want to blame the editors and the publishers, but the editors and publishers are trying to follow the audience. And so who's really to blame for all that finagling?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go ahead. Then I have a cold burn story for you.
I was, I've had a number of times where I've read something or I've watched something on TV and I say, but yeah, but what about such and such? We never heard about that. Or whatever happened to so and so? They were there, never heard another word about them. So I understand what you're saying because it leaves questions like it's not finished. Something's
Mhm. Yeah, I do. I'm actually a structural editor for several authors, and that's one of the things that they have me do is like, okay, did everything connect? Did I say they drove here, but then say they never drive here? That type of thing. So I always try and find the inconsistencies, and the inconsistencies drive me nuts. And of course, I'm sure there's some in here we missed, but
With all
well,
of the cutting that over the last, I'd say almost 20 years or other, um, it's like they cut staff and then so you don't get the proofreading, you don't get all this. And one of the things that's always been, I'm one of those people that can see every item that isn't carried from a scene in a film correctly. You know how they change the position of the camera, they're talking to the one person and then they pull
mhm.
it over here and they don't match up. And I'm sitting there, wait a minute, he was like this, and they've come back, and now he's like this, and
Yeah.
it drives me crazy. It's like
Hmm.
I'm too sensitive to those missing bits and overlap mess ups, and
There's a scene in the movie Glory where Morgan Freeman is walking and waves at some people, and then they wave back to him. And one of the people waving back to him is wearing a wristwatch, and it's set during the Civil War. So, like,
no, no, and they let it through.
yeah, they missed it. Yeah.
And they used to have those people that worked on set, and they were, I can't think of what they were called, but they would keep track of all that stuff. There needs to be a teacup on that table, and it needs to be
Hmm.
this way, and do all that. And they let a lot of those people go, and that was a mistake.
I think that was
Yeah.
the prop person that had to take care of all the props.
Yeah, continuity. Yeah, continuity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the publishing industry is really cut back, and the people who are in those roles are just doing so much more now. So my role and goal is when my editor finally gets the book, he doesn't have to do much.
Yeah.
And I want to make it as easy for him as possible.
Mm.
And he still provides some phenomenal notes on what needs to be changed. And you missed this. And he's a brilliant guy who sees the whole picture. And I love him as an editor. He actually edited Nevada Bar.
Oh,
So
wow.
he loves the
Great.
national parks. And
Yeah.
he's also edited people like Robert Ludlum, and he edits Greg Hurwitz, if you're familiar with his books.
Yes, very much.
Orphan X, yeah. So yeah, he really knows the industry, and I learn a lot from him every time.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and that's the other fun thing too, is like I'm learning all the time. You don't just publish a book and go, okay, I'm done. Like, no, there's always, there's always new goals, next steps, learning more, and I'm loving it, absolutely loving it.
I've known some authors that have lost their editor, and it can be devastating because they have such a close relationship with them, and they know each other and how to deal, and then that person has to leave
Mhm.
and they want to go with them. It's like, wait a minute, where are you going? Can't I get out of this contract and come with you? So it can be, it's important, I think, for a lot of authors to be, especially with if you're working with a traditional publisher.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my editor jokes that well, you might turn it in before I retire. He says that every time. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. I'm like, you're not retiring, dude. No, you're not retiring.
yeah. And then you turn around and lose an author, so you have to, you know, and of course it worked out well for you, but still, that's got to be what? What do you mean I can't have my co-author? Yeah,
Yeah, that was pretty scary for a while because
yeah,
I did say it took 6 months of negotiations. Because John Lindstrom's an actor, there had to be some other elements added into the mix that I never even considered.
oh,
Um, like Hollywood. Okay. Um, if Hollywood comes calling, who owns the book?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, I never thought about that. Um, does John Land get part of that? If the deal's made for book three, but he only worked on the first two, so is it like again another thing like okay, we had to work all that out. We had
Yeah.
attorneys, we had film agents come in, and actually the film rights are owned by a agency now. So now we're just hoping something will happen. There's an
So
actor who
there,
wants to play Michael already, who's already told me that, so that's kind of cool.
Oh, cool.
so there is a possibility that this could become a movie.
That's the hope. As
Mm.
as I mentioned to the film agents, because of his role, you can change things up completely and just have him solve a crime in one park, and you've got 430 episodes right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually said to them it's uh, Die Hard meets Tracker because Tracker is the big show right now, and that show is not even close to what Jeffrey Deaver wrote in his books. So, yeah, it's a dream. Just see, uh, majority of stuff doesn't get made, even if it gets optioned.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, James Rollins, who writes the Sigma Force books, I found on Deadline when I was reading that the Sigma Force show was a go. They had a showrunner, and Amazon Prime was going to do it, and all this stuff. So I sent him a congratulations, and he sent me a note back. He goes, "What are you talking about?" He had
Wow.
no idea.
Wow.
Yeah, and he still doesn't. They're saying, "Oh, we're casting now." Like, okay, we'll see. I'm hoping they make that because I love those books.
Cognitive dissonance is really running rampant these days.
It's true. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You,
have any of you watched any of the wild crime shows that are on Hulu? They're all done in national parks and
Mhm.
they're based on real crimes and have the rangers and stuff talking about solving and stuff. Just kind of interesting. Not nearly as exciting, but
Yeah, and so I've watched those, and then there's also Travel Channel does these, and they're absolute schlock. Basically, they'll say like, "Did Hitler ever visit Glacier National Park?" And like, no, but they'll spend 20 minutes telling you he did, and all their evidence, which is nothing. And there's also some really strange disappearances in parks. I mean, they're really strange disappearances where a little kid will go around a corner and then someone will, the parent will go around the corner and the kid's gone and they can't find the kid for days. And the kid ends up being found like 30 miles away with no memory of what happened. And there's should have been no way that they could have survived that time being gone, but they have, and they have no explanation for it. And then some people just flat out disappear. And according to my ranger contact at Rainier, some folks disappear, but they do it on purpose. So,
Obama also did a series of national parks.
yes, those were great as well. I will admit, I was a history major, so I prefer the history elements of it rather than seeing wildlife, over and over. But I'll still watch those because I really enjoy them.
Well, the photography was pretty nice.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. There's also one that Tom Hanks is doing on NBC right now. I think it's called The Americas. Is that? Yeah, I like that one as well. But yeah, Wild Crimes was fun, and some things get inspired as a result of seeing those cases. And actually, in one case, there was a documentary called Super Volcano that I watched, and two of the resources on that show were rangers that were being interviewed. So I emailed them, and now they're sources for me for the next book.
Cool, cool.
Oh, the volcano in Hawaii. That'd be an interesting park.
I'm going there on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes, I've already signed up.
I've
I've already set up a couple meetings with the rangers there, and I will admit I'm stepping way outside my comfort zone. I've never been on a helicopter, and I'm going to be helicoptering over the active volcano because Michael is going to have to do that.
Be careful.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
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 Right.
Well, this has been wonderful. I don't want to make Jeff stick around too long because he's probably got to go back and write. But you know, are you involved in the Thriller Fest stuff this year?
I will be there, and I'm moderating a panel, and I'm also helping out with what they call Agent Fest, which is where you go pitch to an agent, and hopefully you get signed by the agent. Yes, I'll be doing that.
All right. Well,
It's John Grisham, so I've always wanted to meet John Grisham.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and James Patterson's there also.
Is he?
But,
okay.
yeah.
You know, Jim, I will share that this Christmas, you know how he gives money out every year to bookstores, indie bookstores.
Right.
And I submitted myself as a person to get included in that program. And I wrote in there because I wanted to divvy it up with all the staff in the store. And we had, one of our staff had received something the previous year, but this year he did it. And yeah, he gave me the money so I could put it in, you know, and just give it out to everybody. So it was so cool. And
oh, that's wonderful.
He's a great guy. You know, he takes a lot of hacks from people for his, you know, people are always jealous about success. But yeah, he's a good guy.
Is that James Patterson you were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. My run-ins with him have not been pleasant, so
yeah,
but that's another story.
He comes off very you know what I mean? He's very just stolid. But I've been listening to his writing thing that he has. I can't even think right now what you can go in and pay for the year and you get all these different people that
it's the master class thing, I think it's called. Yeah.
And he's very good. Yeah, he has a lot to say, but in any event, it's in the long run, it's the writing that matters, right? You know. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, I'm so happy everyone enjoyed this. So thank you.
Yeah, I figured you had some fans coming up for you when we read it in the group. So it's great.
Appreciate it.
And we will all be looking for the next one, I assure you.
Well, let me know. Linda knows how to get a hold of me, or I actually am going to have a new website as of tomorrow. So you can go to Jeff Ayers Books and send me a note and say, hey, and I will respond, I promise.
Because I had one for you, what? Yeah, jeffayersbooks.com.
Yes, I'm getting it redesigned. There's a company that specializes in websites for authors, and they've made it look so much nicer than what I've got right now, which
I'll tell you, they have really good, clean.
Yeah, I'm really happy with what they're doing. So
good. Well, I look forward to it. Well, everybody will applaud.
What's your next book? What's next month's book?
Next month's book. Good question. What is next month's book? What?
Searchers. Isn't it?
Yeah, The Searcher. Tana French.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're all over the place, but
that's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks so much.